Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this week's Small Business Chat. My name is Christelle from Communications. Can't even say my company name this morning. Look at that. I'm joined by Karen Black from Postive. And we are joined today by Nancy Hyne from True Horizon. Nancy is our guest today because we were talking about sustainability in business. And Nancy's business helps simplify sustainability for business owners that want to understand and better understand and navigate their way through how to be more responsible in their operation. So I wanted to, it's been amazing hearing Nancy and how she works, and we wanted to bring her on the show to really help advise business owners who, quite frankly, we're all aware of what the issues are going on and the responsibility of business that we have, and how to best understand what's going on, the best way to do it and the best way to approach it. And I think that businesses are looking at consumer behaviour and very much treating sustainability maybe as a marketing tick, but actually to do it from a very thoughtful process of actually how can I do this in a way that is correct, not just a PR trick, but actually has got some sort of substance behind it. I think that's the most important factor, because there's no point us saying, oh, I'm doing a little bit. It's good to have those small steps, but how to do it in the right way. But Nancy, we're so happy to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Maybe, Nancy, you could give us a little bit of background. I love your background. So what you were doing beforehand, and how you've come about to create True Horizon, and how you can help small businesses.
Yeah, cool. Morning, everyone. So yeah, my name's Nancy, and I set up True Horizon a couple of years ago now. I actually trained as a structural engineer originally, so did a lot of work on buildings, mainly new buildings. And while I was doing that, kind of realized that we were building stuff that wasn't really fit for purpose, and it didn't work for the people that was using them. And then, you know, we'd use it for a bit and then knock it down and start again. And it was like, this is madness. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. And that's when I started sort of thinking more about sustainability and got involved in a big project in Sydney, actually, that was going for a really high green certification rating. So they were looking at everything from renewables to, you know, being able to change the space over time so that it works as we grow, and actually decided that I prefer that side of things a lot more to what I was doing. So yeah, I did a bit of a shift then. That was about 10, 12 years ago now, and sort of then shifted into sustainability full time. I tend to work more with existing buildings now, and businesses and how they're using their buildings. So less on the sort of new build side of things, and more about how we can use our buildings better, how we can be more efficient, how we can save money, if we want to save money. But it's really about looking at your operations as a whole. And Crystal, you're right. It's I guess historically the whole CSR piece was a little bit of an add-on, a nice reputation. It was tended to be industries that perhaps didn't have a great reputation, and then we're trying to sort of almost offset that. And I think what's really important now is, you know, consumers and clients, and whether you're sort of product or service based, the stats are really showing that sort of on average 80% of people are saying, do you know what, I want to work with a business or buy from a business that is about more than just money, that they care about the triple bottom line, really. So people, planet, and profit. So in no way is profit a dirty word in any of this. You can't do good if you're not bringing in money and you're not surviving. So that's all good. But it's about how you balance the people and the planet aspect within that. And as you say, Crystal, not a little add-on. You'll struggle to make it effective if it's not part of your DNA and not part of how you make your wider decisions. But if you're doing it properly, you absolutely will improve your profit line in terms of, you know, keeping staff if you have employees, attracting the right kind of clients. We all want to work with clients that share our values, being able to talk confidently about that sustainability message. I think, you know, sustainability can be very confusing. I've certainly stood in front of bins for a few minutes going, where do I put this coffee cup? It is confusing and it shouldn't be. So yeah, it's about really kind of almost coming back to basics, but looking at it as you would look any other strategy. You know, you're tracking your marketing, you're tracking your clients, your income. Start tracking some of that other stuff as well. I think maybe my engineering background means that I look at it a bit more pragmatically. So you do need to be tracking stuff, because otherwise you're not going to be able to measure your success either. So I think that's really important.
That's really good way of looking at it, isn't it? Sort of tracking that like you would track anything else in your business. And you do offer a course as well for small businesses as a Kickstarter, so that helps them through that process, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It kind of it brings it back to basics. So a lot of times when I start working with a client, they go, you know, we're getting rid of plastic, for example, which is great, but you almost need to come back a step and go, right, what in my business has an impact on the environment? Is it packaging? Is it my energy use? Is it, you know, what is it? And actually, what is significant? So, for example, water, if you work from home, there's probably not going to be a huge amount that you're going to change in terms of your water consumption when it comes to your business. But for example, swapping to renewable energy, that could be a huge impact. So it's about starting to understand where your biggest impacts are, and starting to build from there. So it's sort of coming back a couple of steps before you move forward, and actually understanding what your long-term goals are. You know, do you want to be carbon neutral, for example? So if you want that in 5-10 years time, what are the little projects we put in place to get you there in the next 6 months, in the next year? You know, none of this is an overnight thing. I think we've all become used to convenience, I guess, and so starting to rethink how we work and how we can work better. It's not an overnight process. It's something you kind of have to build up on.
I think it's wise. A lot of people that have started their businesses have wanted to do so. I've found, especially business owners that we work with, that they've realised something's wrong with the system, something's wrong with the corporate structure. Actually, some of it's bull, like some of it's lip service. You know, can we do better? And I love the fact that most of us do feel like we can and we should do better. And it starts to stand out in how they're treating their people, more so in terms of environment. So it's more important, I think, from what you're saying, is that if you start doing this now, what happens is that it's all very well, we put these very short-term solutions in place. And then when it comes to creating that long-term shift, it's harder because you've already built on top of it. So just by you showcasing and perhaps signalling where these tiny shifts could be made quite early on, just puts you on a more solid ground to scale up in terms of sustainability, as opposed to then having to do a complete U-turn of who your suppliers are and then rummaging through. Or worse still, if you are discovered to be using something that might be unethical in terms of environmental policies or employee rights and human rights policies of who, you know, workforce, etc., then actually just by doing your due diligence as you're growing, it's ingrained in your head. It's like a bit like a habit, really.
Yeah.
Like, you know, now it's like I don't even think twice. I know what has to go. Like, I have to look at recycling, and I'm looking at it more and more, going, right, even in the office, you know, can we be making sure that I'm using less paper, or just really having that mindset about it. So it can start from the very beginning for very small businesses, and I love the way that you can help them through. So one of the other downloads that you've got is, so Karen, you were introducing me to, in fact, when Karen introduced me to Nancy, and we were talking about associations that businesses might want to be accredited to. And there are different ones, aren't there? So perhaps you could talk about the different ones, and even Karen, from your perspective, you've got some knowledge on that. Maybe if the two of you can explain what's out there, and then Nancy, sort of why you're helping through a certain path for business owners.
Yeah, I think I know, like that's you mentioning about BCorp, and that's the kind of big one out there that everyone knows about. I don't know a lot about all of these actually, but I know there's a lot out there. I've heard from other people that there's something like over 200 different bodies and associations that you can kind of sign up to and go by their models. So, and I know you work a lot with BCorp. Can you maybe tell us why you kind of go down that route?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, and there's certainly certifications that I will not have heard of as well. And you know, there's ones related to products, there's one related to service or to your business or how you operate. So yeah, absolutely, there's hundreds and hundreds. But I think, you know, I understand the idea behind wanting somebody else to verify what you're doing and actually just to help you along the way as well. I think that's really useful. So the big two I tend to work with, one is ISO 14001. Which has been around for a long time. It tends to be a little bit more corporate and aimed at bigger businesses. And it also focuses just on environment, which is fine. And it's a great system and there's a standard involved with that. It just tends to be most of the time a bit more expensive for smaller businesses. So the other one I really like for small businesses is BCorp, which you've mentioned. And what I like about that is it's really, really adaptable. So they have what they call a B impact assessment, which you can download totally free from their website. So I can put the link in for that as well if anyone's interested. And it means that you can start to align with you know, a certification that's internationally recognized. You don't have to get certified. You don't have to pay anything until you want to get certified. But what it allows businesses to do is to start to benchmark. So, you know, you'll get scored on things like the procedures you have in place, how you deal with your employees, how you get feedback from clients. All of that sort of stuff is built into it. And you've got to get a minimum score to be certified, but you can also start to see where you're at on each of those points. So you might be really good at, you know, how you deal with your employees, but actually on how you manage your environmental impacts, how you're tracking, you might need to do a bit of work. So it's a really good way to align with the certification, but without having to spend any money and just to sort of to build out. The other thing that's really good is the questions are filtered based on your business type, based on the size. So you're not going to be answering questions about employees if you have none, which gets really frustrating with other ones. But you're like, well, who am I communicating to? It's just me. You know, a board meeting with just myself. So I actually have just submitted my B impact assessment, and I'm a one-woman band, so it really is applicable across the board, which is what I really love about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really that people, planet, profit. It covers all of that, so it's not just environment as well.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's a lot that just sort of focus on one thing or the other and not cover everything. And you know, when you first sort of mention sustainability in business, the first thing people do is like, oh, okay, well, how much paper are you using in your office? How much? It's like, well, actually, how are you treating your clients? And how are you working with your clients? You know, even if you're a one-person business and you don't have employees, I think it extends to beyond that. Is that kind of relationship and respect and boundaries that you have with the people that you work with, maybe associates that you collaborate with as well. I think that's got to really be brought into the mix more, because it's not just about the environment, it's about social justice too, you know.
And I think so much of that has come out recently with the pandemic. We're all looking at how businesses have coped when things are difficult. You know, and that doesn't mean that you can't make somebody redundant and still be ethical, but it means that you're respectful and how you do that, how you kind of manage those difficulties. And the amazing thing that I've seen, certainly with BCorps, there's a lot of stats, but in the 2008 recession, they actually saw businesses that were BCorps in general grow more and cope with that better than other businesses. So we're yet to see how that translates in COVID. I'm sure there will be some stats on that. But you know, when we're talking about that triple bottom line, it really does impact your financially as well. It does help you prepare for those risks and things that we don't always necessarily foresee. So I think it's a really positive message, that it's not anymore just we need to be seen to look good and we need that tick in the marketing box. It's really got to be more than that.
I think you're absolutely right in the sense that we're becoming a bit more savvy as consumers as well, because I think on your journey, like once you start, it's a bit of a reveal, isn't it? Once you start looking at how businesses are saying what they're saying, I was a bit shocked with certain brands, big brands, that when they're talking about we've got the sustainability ethos, and they're actually talking about their labels, not the clothes, and that's the cover. So how, and I think from what I see from a PR perspective, and like you mentioned before, this was in line with CSR, this thing that you did. And actually, my view is just don't be an idiot. You should just do what's right at the best of times. At all times, really. And just follow that step, because ultimately, when you try and use a smokes and mirrors approach, and you're starting to promote yourself, for me, I can almost envisage that PR crisis happening. When somebody finds out, and then your reputation is literally you've lost trust, you've lost respect from the customers, which ultimately is where the money's coming from. So again, I love the way that you can align profit to being sustainable and actually ethical, because it's just not in our heads. We're just, like you say, I think there's a really important, same with any business, as much as we're in the services industry because we want to help people, we've got to run as profitable businesses 100%. Otherwise, how are we going to employ more people? How are we going to help community? But my question is that is there, even though we have these systems in place, what I'm aware of is that somebody might be going for something like a BCorp certificate, but they could be saying something, because I'm aware of PR spin. I'm aware of, but we say, a bit like politicians, you notice they're not answering the question just quite 100%. So when they're being questioned about, well, what are your, it's like, well, we like to do this, or we're about to do this, but it's like, actually doing it. So what's it actually take? So as consumers, and then also as businesses that want to work with other responsible businesses, if I were to see an accreditation, I'd want to know a lot more. So we can ask them, but is an accreditation, is that certificate enough? Should we be digging deeper? I feel like it's great to see the badge and the certificate, but my view would be, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is it enough? Should we be doing more? Should we be questioning more? And at what stage can we question more?
100% yes, question more. And I think one of the key things is giving the people the right questions to ask. And I think, when we go to work with any business, we sit down and we have a conversation like this, and you start to get a feel about people. The certification, and certainly any certification worth its salt, you don't just get it and then that's it. You need to be assessed. So with B Corp, for example, you have to be reassessed every 3 years. And really, if you haven't been looking at it for that 3-year period, you're not going to be able to improve that score. And it does get published, so people will be able to see, I got that score and then I fell below it, or but also it's about that communication piece. It's taking your clients on that journey with you. So nobody is perfect. There is no perfect solution. So what you do is you say, look, we started here with these quick wins. They were great. These are the things we've identified we need to work on. These are the plans we've got in place. And you keep that communication channel open. I think that transparency is so important, because then when something does happen, you go, yeah, we messed up. We thought this was the case and we found this out, and this is how we're going to rectify it. People make mistakes. We're human, businesses make mistakes. It's trying to come across as perfect, where people will start to delve into what you're doing. And then you're absolutely right. If you've tried to hide it, it actually tarnishes everything else you've done, whether or not that was genuine or not. So I guess the certifications are a good way to say, okay, you've been externally verified, that's great. But then it's starting to delve into it a bit more and to say to them, okay, well, what are the things that you're working on? What are the things you feel you need to improve on? How are you tracking things? And one of the big things that comes out of any certification is engaging with supply chain. So as more and more people start to have those conversations, the better the whole supply chain becomes, because everybody's trying to, my client wants this, so I need to speak to you as to how we can deliver that. And we get rid of that disconnect. I think particularly with products, it's the most obvious for all of us, where you've got a producer going, I've made this really sustainable thing, but when you come to dispose of it, you're like, well, I can't do that because there's no way for me to recycle it in the way you said I would be able to, or whatever it might be. So that piece down the chain and down the line is really important. But yeah, the certification is great, but it's not a be all and end all. I think it means it's an easy way when you start looking at a company to go, okay, there's that badge, this is a starting point, great. What else are they talking about? What else are they communicating? And how can I find out a bit more about, how they assess each stage of their business? Does that kind of answer the question if I got around to it?
I think that you are absolutely, I think you're absolutely right in the sense that people will always forgive a mistake over a lie.
Yes.
And for me, from what I see from a PR perspective and in the, when you see crisis comms and issues management, a lot of us, they know secretly it's not a fix. This is not a solution. But to be honest about that, and it is small steps. Like, remember, we're all small businesses, so as much as we're talking about we're talking perhaps about big cases here, it's these small steps that we can do every day that, like you say, changing your energy provider, just watching what you recycle, maybe communicating that on your website was another thing that I was going to say, is that
I was going to say, how are you communicating that on a daily basis up to your people, which people aren't doing really?
We don't, but I mean, again, it's things that we can do on our social media, or talking about red, or our viewpoints on it. This is all good stuff. This is all good content, and actually, it's again, not because it's promotion, because you need to promote yourself as this. It is just communicating your values, as opposed to trying to position yourself as a beacon of. Even as a small business, if this is what you care about, and you are a business with purpose or passion or heart, then therefore this is one of the values that you want to talk about. So be sure to be proud of any small changes that you're doing. And
do celebrate them, because it doesn't matter how small they are in the right direction. That's moving you in the right way. And I think sometimes people don't feel like they can say, oh, our recycling rates have gone up to whatever it is. It's for you. It's what you're doing, the improvements you're making. So share them.
We've had a couple of comments saying a sector of consumers are becoming far more demanding of their brands, and also sustainability used to be looked at as a charity activity rather than mainstream business. Profit isn't a dirty word. So thanks, Jill, for that.
I agree.
Thank you so much. That has been, I feel like we could be talking about this for hours, but that's why you need to be following Nancy, because I'm loving her posts and learning more about it.
Thank you.
Because it's a good starting point. I've literally been doing the very basics, because it's just me in that office, but like you say, it's like you can start from any point, and just, we all have plans to build our businesses. And it is much more easier to do it with a solid foundation rather than trying to do that hard U-turn back. So we'll provide links to Nancy's links of website, and also there was going to be, I think, links to the
sorry, I completely forgot.
It's at True Horizon, isn't it? And truehorizon.co.uk.
Yes, I'll put that in there. And then I'll put the link to the B impact assessment if people are interested. And I've also got a BCorp checklist that is a bit more high level. So if you just want to get a more general idea of what it is without delving completely into the full analysis, it starts to get you thinking about the sorts of things within your business that you can start to change, or even just go, yeah, actually we're really comfortable that we do some of this stuff well, which is great. So I'll put a link to that in as well.
Yeah, and also your course, which I'm going to do. I've signed up and I will get going on it when I get some space. I've got to make some time, but that is for especially aimed at small business owners, and it helps you on that journey with all the information that you need. So it's,
so there's video tutorials, there's editable workbooks which you get sort of unlimited access to, so as your business grows you can come back to those, but yeah, it's very much aimed at sort of small or even micro businesses, because I know we all wear so many hats, we're doing all of it, so it's just a way to be able to set yourself up and to use those tools without having to bring in a consultant or just giving you a bit more time and space to work through it in your own time.
Fantastic.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for joining.
It's been great. I love chatting with you guys. I always forget that we're live, to be honest. Just on a
point. That's exactly the point. So hopefully you've enjoyed it and gained some insight.
Definitely.
And yes, we will see you next week. Thank you so much for joining us, and hello to those that catch us on the replay. And if there's any comments that we may have missed, or if you have any questions, please post below and we will answer them then. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye bye.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, guys. Bye.